Hey everyone, Matthew Robinson back again, and this is my long overdue review of Life is Short, Death is Long, the latest movie from DMPictures and David Moore. First of all, sorry that it took me so long to review things or put anything up. I've just been incredibly busy this year, and I'm trying to slowly get back into the groove of things, upload some sketches, talk about things, but let's start by getting back on track with this review for the independent film Life is Short, Death is Long, Volume 1. I have to specify that because it's a two-parter. Now, this is advertised as the final, beginning of the final kind of saga of Eric Snipes. It used to be played by David Moore, and now it's played by Cameron Preston Haynes. Now, Cameron Preston Haynes is a good actor. I really like him, and he does a good job here replacing the role of Eric Snipes. It does take me, I'm not going to lie, it takes me a little while to get used to the fact that Cameron Haynes is Eric Snipes, and it takes you about 10 minutes into the movie before you, at least for me personally, before I started saying, oh yeah, this is Eric Snipes. There's a lot of other changes in the cast. It took me a second to figure out, okay, now this person is this person now? And, you know, that's what happens when you reboot a franchise like this, or in a sense, a recast in major areas. There are still people back. Gary Coulter, or I believe it's Bolter, is still played by Jeff Vaughn, and he does a great job with that. Now, the Eric Snipes films, their big thing for me, personally, is the action scenes, the fighting, the rough and tough stuff. And the fight scenes are good in this. Not as many fight scenes as I would hope for, but I understand this is part one. And by the end of this movie, action starts lighting up, and you're like, oh my gosh, part two is going to be action-packed. So I'm not going to hold that against the movie. The fight scenes that were in there were very well done, and there's a lot of story and exposition in this. This really is like the beginning of something. It's like that movie that is segueing into something else. It's like what the, I guess, Harry Potter and the Deathly Hallows Part 1 was to Harry Potter and the Deathly Hallows Part 2. It was that transitional movie, getting everything set up, so then when the second movie comes out, you're like, oh, okay, this is where everything happened. Like, we don't need to explain everything anymore. Let's just go to some action. Let's go to this big epic conclusion that's going to happen. Now, the plot of the story is fairly simple. It follows what most Eric Snipes movies do. They're going into this town to take down a drug lord, and just so I have this right, I want to make sure I don't do anything wrong. His name is Eddie Ibarra, and he's played by Pete Bakley. Now, Pete Bakley actually does a very good job in this. He's actually probably one of my favorite villains they've had in the Eric Snipes one. Really fun, kind of creepy villain. Not maybe as menacing as the other villains, but it's still very cool. Now, in comparison to the other Eric Snipes films, I have to say I like the other Eric Snipes film, the previous one, Face of Death, I believe, a little bit better than this one. And that's not to knock on it in any sense or form of the matter, but I just liked it a little bit better. Still, it's well done, it's well produced, but there was something, I think, my biggest complaint with the movie would be its cinematography. Now, the Eric Snipes films, actually, David Moore's and the people he's worked with have always been very effective with their cinematography, especially on a limited budget where I think they're only shooting with one camera on set. But the cinematography was not as good as it has been. And I'm not talking about lighting or even sound, though there were some issues with that, but that's to be expected to some degree. What I had more of a problem with was that with a lot of these characters, I didn't even know exactly who they were as people, because the movie didn't take time to really give them close-ups or to really show them doing a certain thing. I was not happy with that side of the cinematography. It's not bad cinematography necessarily, but at this point in the franchise, I was expecting a little bit more on that side. And so that's one thing that I'm hoping that will be fixed in Volume 2, better cinematography. The editing, it's well paced, but I felt still that it drags in a couple parts. And for being so short, it really is over quickly, but it does drag in some parts. And so I'm hoping that all these will be fixed in Volume 2. That being said, I thought some of the actors were great. I like some of the characters. The characters are fun. The fight scenes are great. Special thanks to everyone who worked on the fight scenes. And also, a little note, Antoine Steele, does he look like one of the bad guys from Commando, the Arnold Schwarzenegger movie? I kind of feel like he does. Just saying, that kind of channels him a little bit. But no, it was an interesting, fun movie as always, and I definitely recommend if you have it's only about 40 minutes total. If you have about 40 minutes to spare, I would say check it out. It's worth it. It's a lot of fun. If you're into those kind of kung fu movies, you'll like this one. There's not just kung fu in this one. It's building to something, and I recommend you see this where you see Volume 2. It is probably, I would put it as the second or third best Eric Snipes film that's come out. And I'm going to grade it on an independent film level. I'm not going to grade it based on mainstream. It would be an 80 out of 100. I was very back and forth between getting a 79 or an 80, which is basically the difference between a C plus and a B minus, but I'm going to give it that 80 just because I have such high expectations now for Volume 2, and I'm really want to see how they close out this franchise. So that's all I have time to say for now. If you want to check out my sketches, they're going to be uploaded to this channel too, but if you want to see them before then, if you're impatient, you can check out the official page for the Randumb Show, where full episodes, all from this season and last season and the season before that, are online. So you can go to www.youtube.com/Randumb Show, spelled RANDUMB. Okay, everyone, that's all the time for right now. Remember to rate, comment, subscribe, and until next time, please remember, it's all in the hair.